News today that the Saudis are cutting oil production as part of OPEC's decision to reduce production by 2 million barrels a day. And that means higher gas prices for us. Okay, that happens. But what makes this particularly troubling is it seems that the president's controversial visit to Saudi Arabia in July was a bust. Asking OPEC and the Saudis not to do this doesn't seem like that big an ask. Remember, the trip was very controversial, including from Democrats.
And my worry, frankly, is an MBS is going to have a meeting like this and then laugh behind our back at the meeting. So I think meeting with him in particular is an absolutely horrible idea. Now,
and remember, on the campaign trail, Biden called Saudi Arabia a pariah, promised not to give it a blank check. In his first year in office, he released an intelligence report accusing Saudi's crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman, known as MBS, of being complicit in Khashoggi's murder, and a report on 9/11 implicated Saudi Arabia in the terror attacks. But Saudi Arabia plays a major role in global energy markets, and the White House is trying to fight a 40-year high inflation rate driven in part by higher gas prices. But with all the Saudis' human rights violations, relationships with terrorists, President Biden sacrificed serious political capital to take the trip. So you would think this would be the least that he could get out of it. Today, President Biden said he was disappointed by OPEC's decision, but still defended the trip.
The trip was not essentially for oil. The trip was about the Middle East and about Israel and rationalization of positions. But it is a disappointment, and it says that there are problems.
Look, I defended the president taking the trip at the time, thinking the relationship was an important one. But this does feel like the ultimate rebuke. And it seems to me that Senator Kaine may have been right, that MBS was laughing behind our backs. But someone who knows the region much better than I do is Robert Jordan, former U.S. ambassador to Saudi Arabia under President George W. Bush. Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for coming on the program. Appreciate it. Do you think I'm being unfair to the president here?
No, good to see you, Dan. I think you are pretty much on target. I've got a couple of thoughts that I would add, though.
Please.
First of all, this does not appear to have been a carefully staffed summit meeting in the classical sense. I participated in 2 summit meetings with President Bush, one in Crawford and one in Sharm el-Sheikh. And we spent literally weeks preparing for those summit meetings and preparing what we call deliverables. The deliverables are what you actually bring out of the meeting, and these are decided upon and agreed upon essentially ahead of time. I don't see any deliverables here that were properly staffed and agreed upon ahead of time. In fact, I was talking a couple of days ago to someone who was on this trip, and I said, "Where are the deliverables? I don't see the deliverables." And my friend said, the deliverable was Biden. In other words, he was served up to the Saudis as their deliverable. I do think that is a measure of sloppy staff work, poor preparation. But let's also remember that as much as we condemn the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, who I knew and liked, and I've been very outspoken about that, the Saudis are still part of the G20. They're the 19th largest economy in the world. Their oil production is critically important to the rest of the world. And so this is really a result, I think, of a failed policy on hydrocarbons versus clean energy. This administration has discouraged investment in oil and gas. Lenders are not willing to lend given the capricious nature of where we are. And let's also remember that, a year ago, this same president was asking the Saudis to curtail production because it was hurting oil producers in the United States.
Right.
So there's a whipsaw effect here. And I think if anyone's laughing at this administration right now, it's because of this inconsistent policy and coming out now and saying, oh, please increase production because it's hurting us in an election year.
Well, you know, here's part of the problem. Part of the problem is that President Biden vowed to be tough on Saudi Arabia before he was elected, right? I mean, I think that's part of the issue, is that he then goes to Saudi Arabia, as you point out, without a distinct and clear plan, it seems. And so you would think that after putting up that kind of political capital, right, he's already flip-flopped now on Saudi Arabia by even going, that he'd be able to make a call and say, guys, I stuck my neck out for you. You can't do this to me. He probably did make that call, or someone close to him probably made that call. And apparently the answer was, sorry, too bad.
Yeah, but here's where I think we need to add a little bit of nuance. We can't expect the Saudis or the other OPEC plus one members to act contrary to their own economic interests. And Aramco is one of the most sophisticated companies in the world. They've got computer modeling out anywhere. And what you're going to see is, my guess is they concluded that they, particularly with a downturn in the world economy, with demand about to crater in their view, they needed to curtail production in anticipation of that. And this is what Abdulaziz bin Salman, the Minister of Petroleum, has actually said. And I've worked with him in the past. I think this is probably how they came about on this. Mm-hmm. The sad part is there could have been a strong enough U.S. relationship that even though it was contrary to their economic interest, they would have hesitated on that. And that's not what happened here because of the history that I've just described and what you've described, calling them a pariah. As much as I am disgusted by the conduct of the Crown Prince with regard to human rights, we've still got to deal with the reality of the world. And this is what's hurting us right now.
Remember I said Ambassador Jordan knows this stuff better than I do? That's why we had him on the show. Thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.